Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alicia and I'm the owner of Alicia Be Creative. I am back with another tutorial. I know that it's been a while, but we're back and we're going to spring right into fall and start on some beautiful fall tumblers. So of course, everything I use in today's video will be listed and linked down below in the description box, as well as any discount codes that I have for you. Also be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Let's go ahead and jump right into today's tutorial. All right, so to start today's tutorial, we're going to be using a 20-ounce thick from Maker Flow Crafts. So these are obviously very similar to like the skinny tumblers that I normally use on my channel, but these are wider around. So it's a shorter satured cup, a little bit wider around, still fits pretty nicely in a cup holder, and I really feel like that these are really good style cups for like coffee mugs for men. I feel like, because, typically men's hands are larger than women's, that sometimes it can look really silly for them to hold some of the skinny cups, and I feel like this is a really good size for creating, manly tumblers, we'll say. Anyway, enough about cups, but let's go ahead and prep our cup. We're going to start with sanding this down, just scuffing up that surface. We're going to wipe this down with 91% rubbing alcohol, and we're going to go straight into glitter. So we are going to be glittering this cup using UV resin. You'll notice that I haven't spray painted the cup any color, and that is solely because the glitter that we're using, which is Cowboy Caviar from Batty Glitter, this is a metallic glitter, and so with metallic glitters, honestly, you don't need to actually do any sort of base painting, because the way that the glitter reflects on its own, you really don't need to have a base paint and color like you would on a more translucent paint or translucent glitter, which might pick up some of the color that's beneath it. I hope that makes a little bit of sense, but this is typically what I do if I'm going to be using a metallic color. I don't end up base painting unless I'm doing some sort of swirl, so I know where the color is going to go. But outside of that, I will just glitter right over stainless steel. So we're going to use UV resin as our method of glitter application here. And so I've just put on a thin layer of UV resin onto my cup, spread that evenly on just like I would with a coat of epoxy when I'm doing glittering. And we're going to go ahead and go right in with Cowboy Caviar. So I've used Cowboy Caviar before, and it's that beautiful mix of like bronzy, golds, and teals, and it really just screams fall. I told you guys when I got this color that this would look perfect for a Western cup, which is what it was intended for, but also would go and pair really well with your fall designs. So if you haven't snagged this, go snag this immediately. So then we're going to go ahead and cure this immediately. Obviously, ideally, you'd want to just put this outside for like 2 to 5 minutes and it would be done. But because I tend to do all of my crafting at night when there is no sunshine, I do have to default to my UV light. So I'm just going to spin this in my hand for a few minutes. I did about 4 cycles of 120 seconds, and that was to just be 100% sure that it was completely cured under that glitter layer before I went in with my coats of epoxy. So 2 coats of epoxy directly over this cup. I ended up using Flint Sisters Fast Set for my first 2 coats of epoxy. That gave me enough of a smooth surface to be able to work on the cup and do the next layers of my design here. So we are, of course, going to do some sanding. Since we will be adding spray paint to this, we want to try and make sure we can buff out anything that is bumpy and lumpy and just not ideal, and something that we wouldn't want to show under paint. Since we will be adding a paint layer and some alcohol inks on top, we're going to be able to see any of those imperfections, which is why it's so important that you add a really good coat of epoxy and have a nice smooth surface to work on before you're going to add any sort of paints or things over top. So I did go ahead and go into Cricut Design Space, and I found a free leaf file in the images section, and I just duplicated that in 2 sizes. So I kept the original size, which was like 5 inches wide, and then I made a smaller size a couple of times just with these different traditional leaf shapes. Okay, so I'm going to take these leaf shapes that I have cut on my stencil vinyl, and I'm going to apply them to my cup very randomly. I am going to make sure I leave a little bit of gap in space for where I aim to place a final like decal that's going to go on the front of the cup. But otherwise, I am just going to take the different leaves and apply them all over the cup until I feel like I have enough stencils all over my tumbler. So now I'm going to go ahead, and now that these are applied, I'm going to take this to the spray tent and we're going to spray it with a flat white spray paint. So we're back now that that paint has dried, and we're going to go into adding some alcohol inks over top. So I am using 2 alcohol inks. I'm using Dead Sea from Jen's Crafted Gems, and I'm also using Teakwood, which is a Ranger alcohol ink. So I'm going to start with the Dead Sea, which gives a really beautiful turquoisey color. I'm kind of going for a patina look without doing an actual patina with paints, if that makes sense. But we're going for that vibe in those colors, okay? So I'm going to start with my teal here, and I'm going to literally go over this with my dry brush here to create sort of that wood-grained texture and look. So I'm going to continue to do this pattern, this up and down motion with my dry brush until the entire cup is completely covered here. So I ended up having to choose teakwood because I only have a few browns left. I keep meaning to go to the craft store or order more brown alcohol inks because I typically love to use sepia as my go-to brown, but I just keep forgetting. I really have to remember. I should probably write that down right now. So once I'm done though with this color here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to immediately go into my brown. Now in my head, this was going to come out much deeper than it does. And you're going to kind of see what I picked up that wasn't really in my original vision. But this happens sometimes when you mix alcohol inks. So I added my first layer and it's kind of looking more green than brown. In some sections, it does definitely showcase more brown, but to me, it was giving green. And I was kind of like, oh no, I've just messed up my entire cup. How am I going to fix this and salvage this? But I decided to continue to go with this idea and go forward with it. And I'm actually happy that I did. I think that I just thought the brown would be much brighter, not thinking about the fact that if I'm going to put alcohol ink on top of alcohol ink, I'm going to get I'm going to get a little bit of mixing, you know. And it's not going to be the true color that I'm putting on the cup. So I didn't really think about that when I was choosing to put the brown over. I think that if I were to go back and do this design again, I think I would interchange and do every other stroke, start with the green, the blue, and then go into with the brown with the other brush until I had like this sort of seamless wood grain look all the way around to really pull in a deeper brown. But neither here nor there. I'm still happy with things are coming out, but now we're going to get into the distressing part. So I'm taking some acetone here in this little push bottle that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm taking a paper towel and I'm really going to distress and scuff up the top rim and the bottom rim. And the reason why I'm doing that is because those are the 2 areas that are the most imperfect, meaning that there's some small minor bumps and things that just are imperfections in the epoxy layer, because I probably should have gone for a 3rd coat, but I wanted to kind of move on to the next process. So I'm just going to distress those areas that typically give me a little bit of issue, right? That do require a bit more sanding. So we're going to go in with our paper towel here, and the acetone is going to remove all of the alcohol ink and all of the paint that's under there and expose that glitter. Then you'll notice I have another bottle next to that. That's my alcohol. That alcohol is going to clean up the cloudiness that you're going to see as I'm using the acetone, and that's going to brighten and really shine up that epoxy, remove any of the sediment on top of those areas that I'm removing all of the paint layers with acetone, and really make those areas shine up again, okay? So interchangeably, I'm going in with acetone when I want to remove those layers of paint really quickly, and then cleaning up those areas again, going back over those areas with alcohol. Now, the one thing I didn't foresee again is that alcohol also is going to remove the alcohol inks that we've just applied to this cup. So I did have a little bit of some areas that look a little bit whiter around where the distressing is happening, and that's because when I went in with alcohol, of course, it's also removing those alcohol ink layers, so it's just exposing the paint below it. So that's why they look a little brighter kind of around the edges. But once I'm satisfied with all of the distressing that I've done so far, we're now going to go ahead and remove those stencils. So yep, we did all of our alcohol ink work and all of our distressing with the stencil still on the cup, so that we could see, you know, where everything's going to lay out and pick those areas to distress that make the most sense for your design. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up this process because no one wants to see me remove stencils for 25 minutes. But we're going to go ahead and get these all removed. And then I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more like gold, bronzy brown to this. So I ended up deciding before I put this on the turner for another coat of epoxy, I had this like rose gold paint in my stash of paints because, again, I'm a crafter. I have lots of things that I've maybe used one time or maybe not even used at all, but I have them for a project sometime in the near future, right? So I have this like rose gold metallic-y paint, and I'm just using like a sea sponge, and I'm going to dab the paint kind of in those open areas and introduce some more of those like neutral colors here. And then I'm going to go in with that dry brush, and I'm just going to spread that out to kind of make it look like it was part of the original wood grain look. I also feel like this really helps lean into the patina look that I was going for without having to use the paints that you typically would use for a true patinaed cup. And I'm really loving how this is kind of coming out. It's just enough subtle of that metallic-y look that it doesn't do too much to like take away from the beautiful glitter that's under here. All it really does is it allows the colors on the cup to really just be enhanced. And I'm really now starting to see that I have salvaged this cup. So I'm going to continue to apply in different areas until I'm satisfied. That is just kind of the name of the game. You apply until you are happy with how it is looking, right? So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and put that cup on the turner for another coat of epoxy before we go into adding our vinyl to this, okay? So I went back to Cricut Design Space, and originally I had planned to do like the offset of this and outline the leaves, but I decided to do more of an inset. So I made those images, the original images, slightly smaller so that it looks like the original design was an offset, and we're going to then apply those. It'll make sense. So it'll kind of have like an outline of glitter, which is the glittered, we'll call it the glittered offset, and the whole center will of course be covered with the vinyl. And I'm really happy too that I had found this color in my stash. Originally I had thought that I was just going to go with my favorite, which is the textured gold metallic vinyl. But I'm glad that I picked up the brown one and found that one first, because it's just helping again to cover up the little boo-boo I made with my brown alcohol inks actually turning a little bit green. So I'm going to speed through this process, of course. I'm just lining up all of those decals. I was a couple decals short because apparently I didn't cut enough. So to kind of remedy that and kind of look like this is more purposeful, I just took a gold paint pen, and I'm actually going to go around the extra leaves that were on the cup that I didn't feel like going back to Cricut and cutting more vinyl out of. And then I'm also, as I was kind of having fun with this gold paint pen, I decided to go around all of those distressed areas and kind of create like this golden outline around all of the distressed areas. I think it helps take away from where some of the alcohol took away the alcohol inks over like around the edges, and kind of just add another layer of distressed look without us ever having to lay down gold paint under that original layer of paint. So I kind of just decided to go with it. I was happy with how the first one looked after I did the leaf, and I was like, we're going to do this all the way around. And so I'm not fully like tracing the shape. I'm actually making it really irregular, kind of like how you would do a geode, right? You don't want a super smooth edged geode because it doesn't quite look natural and organic. I'm really kind of making really irregular lines and really following the irregularity of the different shapes of the distress marks that I've created on the cup. It just kind of just gives it purposefulness and just looks a little bit more natural and organic than if I were to like, you know, smoothly draw, you know, around those areas. So I'm happy with how this is looking. Before we get this on the turner though, we are going to add our decal. So this is just a cut file that I made in Procreate. I will link to where you can grab it on my Etsy shop. It's a super simple file. It's literally only $1. It took me no time to make whatsoever, but I felt like this definitely needed a quote. And shout out to my girl Ebony. We were working on something in one of my lives, and she is just the quote queen. Can I just tell you that? She always has super quick, simple quotes. And I was like, I have to go with this because it's just so cute and such a really good idea. So this one says, fall is proof that change can be beautiful. natural, and it can be. It's okay if we have to change, right? It's okay if things change. Sometimes it seems scary, but that's okay. Look how pretty the leaves are when they start to turn the different colors. So I'm really happy with how this is coming out. So I am going to finish just weeding out the smaller letters here. Because this was such a smaller cut file, I did have to reverse weed the top file and then just move out any of those sections after I had fully laid it. But now we're going to go back to the turner. This is our final coats of epoxy. So I've mixed up 30 mLs of Flynn Sisters Supply Shop Artist Cure epoxy, and we're going to use about half of this for the cup because it is only a 20 ounce, and this is actually a pretty smooth cup, so I don't need the full 30 mLs on this tumbler. But we're going to go ahead and add a nice smooth layer over top, and then we're actually going to add a little sprinkling of some gold glitter into this. So you can choose any gold glitter, of course. Please do not feel like you have to go with this one. This is actually a discontinued color. It was retro from my Aisha Creations. Obviously, she no longer sells glitter and vinyl. She just is making cups, making beautiful cups for customers. But I decided, because I have this, it has like a little fleck of green. And I felt like that would play really well into kind of the colors that we have going for this cup. So I'm just going to sprinkle in just a little bit in some of those open sections, avoiding obviously the already glittered sections. So I'm aiming for the alcohol ink sections. A little bit goes a long way. You don't need a whole lot, just a little sprinkling in those open areas, and this was it. So this is the final look for the cup. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's tutorial, the first fall cup of the season. And yeah, be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you guys, of course, in the next video next week. Bye!